What was your work like with Dick Smith? Did you give him a lot of guidance? Did he come to you with ideas?
He was the greatest makeup artist of his day.
Yeah.
He had never done anything like this, but neither had I.
Yeah.
So Dick set out and did a number of things, and it all, to be frank, it all looked like monster makeup to me. And I rejected it. And finally I started to think, well, if I don't like what he's doing, what is it that I want? What do I want him to do? And it, like everything else, it came to me in a flash. I said, Dick, when she becomes possessed, the makeup should be intrinsic to what has happened in the film. For example, there's a scene where she masturbates with a metal crucifix and is stabbing at her vagina. And let's say it was possible that she also used that crucifix to disfigure her face, so that what the makeup grows out of is the gangrenous sores that have appeared from her own attempt at self-destruction. And Dick picked up on that, and then, of course, he added the discoloration of her eyes, which gave the sense that she might also be inhabited by something else. But the makeup grew out of that, something that was intrinsic to the story.
Something organic.
Yeah.
It's very intense, particularly in 1974 when the film came out. There had been nothing like the self-mutilation with the crucifix. And were there battles to be fought with Warner Brothers at that time?
Warner's was terrified of what the reaction to the film might be. The studio thought that this was going to be an X-rated picture. And I think Warner's was bracing to either have me cut it down or go with it in a limited release. They didn't know what they had. Neither did I, by the way. But Aaron Stern, as head of the code for the MPAA, he watched The Exorcist. I didn't know him at the time. He called me a half hour after they screened it. He said, Mr. Friedkin, this is Aaron Stern. Yes, sir. He said, what a great film. He said, it's just fabulous. He said, we're going to give it an R rating with no cuts.
Wow.
We're not going to ask you for any cuts. He said, now, we're going to take a lot of heat for that. I want you to know that, and so will you. He said, but I think that people should see this film. I don't think young people should see it, very young people. I think people of a certain age shouldn't see it without a parent. But we're not going to restrict this film and give it an X, which in those days, as to you couldn't advertise it.
Right.
So he saved the film. He gave it an R. But many theaters around the country played it as an X anyway. They put their own sign outside the theater.
Self-imposed.
In Washington, where I shot the film, at the Georgetown Theater, it played as an X.
Unbelievable.
And in Boston, of course.
Of course.
It played as an X.
Are there movies that you've seen in recent years that inspire you or excite you, or young filmmakers?
The Coen brothers, of course, and Catherine Bigelow. The day I saw The Hurt Locker, I knew it was going to win the Academy Award. I saw a film recently that hasn't come out in America as we're taping this. It's a film called Harry Brown with Michael Caine, made by a bunch of young British filmmakers, and I thought it was great. It's the best performance Michael Caine has ever given.
It's saying something.
Well, yeah, it's saying a lot indeed, and it caps a great career. But his performance in Harry Brown is magnificent, and the movie is quite terrifying. There was a film a few years ago about Hitler in the bunker called Downfall.
Right.
Did you ever see that?
Yes.
With Bruno Ganz, who played
Fantastic.
Hitler. He was Hitler. And I will now tell you that what that film brought out for me was it strengthened my belief that Hitler, the only explanation for Hitler is demonic possession. This was also the country of Goethe and Thomas Mann and Beethoven and, great thinkers and writers and poets, and they followed this crazy little ex-corporal into hell. It's the only time I've ever heard of a country that based its its political philosophy on the extermination of a race of people. Yeah. No, the only thing that explains Hitler to me is demonic possession. And that movie called Downfall, or the German title is Untergang. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't explain why a whole race of highly intelligent, sophisticated people followed the devil into hell.
Well, you've scared audiences several times. You've done some frightening things, not just The Exorcist and The Guardian, but even on television, your Tales from the Crypt, a show that was often very jokey and winky. Your From a Dead Man's Chest episode is very dark and very intense. And your Nightcrawlers for Twilight Zone in the 1980s is, I think, by far the best episode of that show and one of the scariest things done on television.
Thank you.
So what have been the different tools that you would use to go work in different media, from an R-rated theatrical film to commercial television?
The only thing about directing for television is you usually have less time than you have to make a feature. But what attracted me to doing those short films for Twilight Zone and for Tales from the Crypt was the script. They sent me these scripts, and I thought they were terrific in any medium. And I don't view one medium as superior or inferior to another. But as far as I'm concerned, I have to be able to please myself.
Right.
I have to, first of all, be drawn to the story and the characters. If I am, I'll do a play in a church basement. It's an adventure and an education. And that's why I got into the film business.
Which is a great way to wrap it up. Thank you so much for sharing your time and stories with us.
It's a pleasure, Mick.
Appreciate it.
God bless.